Yo, what's cracking everyone? Ericship 111 here. So just last week, I finally got a chance to play the new Crew Motorfest early. Now, the preview session itself was around 3.5 hours long, and I just want to say a huge thank you to the guys over at Ubisoft Australia for giving me this opportunity to see what this game is all about. Now, just keep in mind that the gameplay you see in today's video is not the final representation of how the game will be like once it releases on the 14th of September, so you may see certain frame rate issues here and there, certain features still being locked or unavailable, but overall the 3.5 hour play session was certainly more than enough for me to get a solid indication of what the game will be like. So in today's video, here are 8 things I noticed about the Crew Motorfest that really surprised me. Starting off with number 1, physics. So the first thing that surprised me about the Crew Motorfest was the car's driving physics. Now, in my opinion, the Crew 2 had quite an arcadey feel, which I know isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, with the Crew Motorfest, it feels like the gap between arcade and simcade was certainly narrowed, and the cars feel closer to more of a Forza Horizon game more so than a Need for Speed title, which in my opinion is a major improvement. Initially though, when I just started driving in the Crew 2 with all of the assists turned on, the car's handling did feel quite weird. With traction control turned on, the cars felt inconsistently grippy. Around corners, sometimes I would turn how I think I should, and the car would either veer off too early or too late. It's only until I turned traction control off that's when the handling of the cars felt good, controllable, and to a degree familiar to a Forza Horizon title. For most of the time in my play session, unfortunately I was using the automatic transmission. I really wanted to use manual, but the only issue I encountered was that the Crew Motorfest did not allow for custom button mapping. All of the preset layouts felt awkward whenever I would drive in manual, and I figured because I only had a limited amount of time, it's just better off for me to stick to automatic. But in auto, with traction control turned off, the cars drove great on tarmac. I'd imagine the experience would have been even better in manual, and as far as off-roading and rallying is concerned, once again it felt a lot more realistic than how it was in the Crew 2, and it's great to see that regardless of which terrain you are driving on, the physics all around felt very consistent. To me, the one thing that held the Crew 2 back a little was the arcade style of driving, and with the Crew Motorfest, I believe the developers wanted to improve this aspect of the game, which they did, and take on the also popular Forza Horizon series, which then leads me to number 2, inspiration from Forza Horizon. Now, when we all heard about the Crew Motorfest was going to be set in Hawaii, specifically on the island of Oahu, initially lovers of open world racing genres were saying, oh, this is great, we're going to see a spiritual successor to the original Test Drive Unlimited, which of course was also set in the island of Oahu. But with how the game is presented, the driving physics, the fact that you can pretty much explore anywhere and everywhere around the map, the checkpoints, and there's even a main Motorfest site with 2 loops you can go upside down in. If I had to be honest with how the map is, with the major city of Honolulu, the beautiful beach sides, the breathtaking jungles, and just the overall vibe and visuals Motorfest presents, this feels more like a Forza Horizon 3 spiritual successor more than anything else. Now, that isn't to say that this is a complete rip-off from the Forza Horizon series. Many of the core features from the Crew 2 still carries over, like the free roam challenges, the way you upgrade your vehicles with unlocking new higher perf rating parts, the unique drag racing element. I mean, the DNA of the Crew, if you will, is still there, but presented in a formula that has proven to work over the many years. I mean, call it what you like, but for me, I love it. And for any PlayStation players out there that have craved for a Forza Horizon game on their exclusive console, this is it. And let's also not forget, planes, bikes, boats are all in Motorfest 2, which then leads me to number 3. Cars are the main focus. So with the Crew 2, some of the races involved a mix of different types of transportation, and some events were even exclusive to airplanes or boats. Now, based on the introduction of the Motorfest, where the game mentions that there are these different playlists like Made in Japan, the 911 Legacy, the Vintage Garage, Lamborghini, but there were no specific races for boats or any specific events for airplanes. Now, that could be because I only got to play a small portion of the game and they could be unlocked later. I don't know, but it seems as though the main true focus for the Crew Motorfest is on cars. The planes and boats are not featured as much as the previous Crew 2. Again, please take this with a grain of salt, but to me, every playlist I got to see and experience was all about cars. For myself, as much as I enjoyed flying a plane or riding a boat in the Crew 2, I still spent around 95% of the time on the game driving with cars and racing in them. I don't know how many Crew fans may be upset about the smaller focus on boats and planes, but they are still indeed in the game. Number 4, the map. Alright, so I'm sure many of you watching are probably going to ask, how is the map for the Crew Motorfest? Now, if we are going to compare it with the Crew 2, in terms of size, yes, it is much smaller than the Crew 2, but you also have to remember that when the island of Oahu was planned, initially this was supposed to just be a DLC for the Crew 2, but the developers decided that the game should be a standalone title, so that way they could explore more ways of developing what is now known as the Crew Motorfest. But if I had to compare it to, let's say, a Forza Horizon 5, hands down, there's no competition at all. The island of Oahu is so much bigger than Horizon 5's Mexico, plus with all of the different biomes, if you will, the main city of Honolulu is quite large and vibrant. There are plenty of different mountain roads you can discover, both on tarmac and dirt, and the best part is, the game will allow you to choose a specific playlist known as the Hawaii Scenic Tour. Here you can enter a series of different events, and the goal here isn't to reach top 3 or try to win the race, but it will give you a guided tour around all the main interesting spots around this island, which I think is a brilliant idea, because when a map is so big, in the beginning it could feel quite overwhelming and you kind of don't know where are the best roads to drive. But in this playlist, the game will guide you to some great roads, historical sites, and overall just a taste of what the island has to offer. Also, for those wondering, yes, there is an airport on the map with a huge modern day airstrip. Number 5, races are unique and challenging. So with many of the races, they are quite traditional, whether they are on tarmac or dirt. Usually they are point-to-point race or circuit races. For some of the street races with relatively modern day cars, there is the availability of nitrous to be used, whereas the motorsport playlist, where you are racing with proper racing vehicles, there's no nitrous here. However, they have also added something unique to this type of racing, and that is a tire wear meter, which means as you drive longer, your tires will lose grip to the point where you have to go into the pits and change them. I mean, how cool is that in an open world racing title? Then of course, there's the Vintage Garage. Here again, no nitrous is available to use, but also no GPS either. So it's actually quite cool to see that certain racing categories has their own unique format. However, within the play session that I had, there were 2 races or playlists, if you will, that stood out to me. The first was the Electric Odyssey playlist. So without giving too much away, this playlist is all about electric vehicles, and in one of the races, although we are given nitrous or electric boost, if you will, throughout the road layout, there are certain lanes that you can drive through which will recharge your boost at different intervals, which I thought was pretty cool. And I also would like to mention that every different playlist, the way the map has been decorated is unique to its specific theme, which truly gives a different vibe depending on which playlist you are currently in. And the other race I want to mention is a rally race, which actually comes from the main stage that I'll talk about next. But look at how difficult and challenging the road is here. I gotta admit, I was struggling here because I seriously wasn't expecting a Dirt 2.0 rally experience, but overall, I believe the developers have put in a lot of thought in these races, which then leads me to number 6, Mainstage. This is pretty much like the summit for the Crew 2. Basically, each week there is a specific theme and a bunch of different races and challenges you can complete. The theme that I got to play was the European Elegance, and yeah, you can see that there are races and challenges to do. At the top, you can see your progress bar, and depending on how you do, you can either unlock additional XP, vanity items or car upgrade parts, to even brand new vehicles. A bit like the festival playlist in Forza Horizon 5, it will certainly keep players busy for the entire week, and I'm curious to see how this progresses and changes once the game actually releases. Number 7, Interior View. Right, so I know for those who are watching this video right now, subscribe to my channel for my Forza Horizon 5 content, and one of the biggest complaints about that game, especially in cockpit view, is that for the past 5 titles, or actually the entire Forza existence, the game has never had a cockpit steering animation greater than 180 degrees. Now, I know this can be rather frustrating for players who play the game on a wheel, as your input does not match what the game is animating. Now, although I did not get a chance to play Motorfest on a wheel, what I can confirm is that cockpit steering animation does indeed turn more than 180 degrees, and it feels quite good on a controller too. And lastly, number 8, my final thoughts. Now, in my opinion, this is a huge step up from the Crew 2, especially if their target is to dethrone or compete with the Forza Horizon series. The fact that this game is multi-platform will be quite big. It certainly fills the gap for open world races for PlayStation players. I love the overall presentation of the game, the cutscenes, the cinematics, the subtle additions to the world based on each different playlist. It is very unique. Now, this could be a very hot take here, but I feel as though what Ivory Towers have done is used Forza Horizon as their example, looked at all of the feedback from the community on how the Horizon series could be improved upon, and then implemented onto Motorfest without trying to turn it into just another Forza Horizon game or losing the DNA of the Crew. Now, some people may like it or some people may not, but based on what I have played, this game is excellent. Now, I have a lot more that I would like to talk about with the Crew Motorfest, which I will save for another time, as there were certainly a lot more things I noticed which deserves a video on its own. But anyways, if you guys did find today's video interesting or helpful, please make sure to smash the thumbs up button, as it really does help me out. And of course, if you guys would like to stay up to date with everything the Crew Motorfest, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.